Welcome back to the Gut 360 podcast, your weekly dose of Monday morning inspiration to help you take back control of your health. I'm your host, Ellie Breacher, a registered nutritionist, and if you're ready to get into the driver's seat of your health, you're in the right place, and I am so glad you're here. I can't believe it's already June. Summer is officially here, and today we're talking all about how you can get that summer glow up, but not just in the ways that you might expect. So we're diving into gut health, energy, glowing skin, feeling like the best version of you. So grab a matcha or throw your trainers on and get some steps in whilst you listen to this episode. And to join me in talking about getting the glow, who better than Madeleine Shaw? I'm honored to have Madeleine on the pod. She is an experienced nutritionist, author, yoga instructor, and the creator of The Glow Space, a premium content platform for yoga, Pilates, meditation, quick nourishing recipes, and meal prep. Over the last 6 years, she has transformed a simple food blog into an inspiring wellness community with over 700K fans across multiple media platforms. Welcome, Madeleine, to the Gut 360 podcast.
Thank you. It's so great to be here.
It's great to have you. So I want to start by asking you, when you hear the phrase summer glow up, what does that genuinely mean to you at this stage of life?
I think definitely glow has always been something that I think comes from within. So it's like what you put in your body, whether that's food, but also your skincare, but also your thoughts as well. So I think a summer glow up, I guess, is that kind of feeling of like, well, I want to feel like refreshed, healthy looking, have beautiful, like dewy skin, maybe feeling like really strong in your body because potentially you'll be like going on holiday more. But yeah, I think a summer glow up for me is always that 360, not just looking at like hitting the reps. It's also like what you're eating, what you're telling yourself. Because I think when you feel good within yourself, that shines through your skin, definitely.
I love that. I think what we're thinking, what we're telling ourselves, what we're consuming in terms of like media and scrolling and TV, it all feeds into it. People think it's just kind of diet and exercise, but you're right. It's so much more. It's that 360-degree approach. So has your definition of a glow up always been like that? Has it changed over the years, especially as your relationship with health has matured?
Yeah, it definitely has. I mean, glow has been my word from the beginning. So I have been in the industry for 15 years now, a long time. And it all kind of started. So I moved to Sydney when I was 18 and I went to university there. And I got diagnosed with IBS and PCOS. And I was sort of figuring things out. And you've got to remember, this is a really long time ago where the internet was so different. And you didn't have access to people educating you and helping you in the way that we have today. And I went to see a naturopath and she completely changed my diet. And I remember bumping into this friend who I hadn't seen for like a year. And she was like, "Oh my God, you look so great. You're glowing." And I thought, what a beautiful word, because I think when you do look after yourself, that's what you want to feel. And I think for so long, health had been in the past, like, be thin, be so thin. And that was like the only thing that, you were meant to be. And I think glow personifies not necessarily a particular body shape or size. It personifies, when you are looking after yourself, how it kind of shines through. I think how it's changed for me over the last kind of decade and a bit is I've probably just got less time. I'm a mum, so like my tricks are more efficient. Whereas probably when I was in my 20s, I had more time and I could do the more long morning routines or all the things that people talk about. So I guess the evolution for me is just being a bit more time savvy.
I love that. I think that is particularly important once you have children, definitely, but also for people of all ages, just being time savvy and being mindful with all of that. You've really been in the game for a long time. I actually remember you were kind of one of the first wellness people in the UK, at least. I remember back when I was getting into wellness, I would do your YouTube videos, your yoga videos. When I was at uni, I had like all the tabs loaded up on my laptop and that was my morning routine. Yep. So you built your career long before wellness became as, I guess, saturated as it is now. And looking back, what do you think has helped your message to resonate so strongly early on?
I guess it came from passion, like it wasn't I want to be an influencer, I want to be, given freebies or whatever, people get into the industry. For me, it was like, I went through my journey of losing my period, having really bad digestive issues, and looking after myself really helped me. And I wanted to share that with other people. It really came from a place of passion and knowing what it feels like to feel unwell and not look after yourself, and know what it feels like to feel good. And I guess I just wanted to share that with other people. So I guess, yeah, being authentic, having that passion behind it. It wasn't a career when I started. It wasn't something that, you thought you could do in the way that it is. Like you said, it's an industry now, and it's like what people who are leaving school are wanting to become and do, which is amazing. But that just wasn't the case for me when I kind of finished university. But yeah, I don't know, being authentic, having passion about it. I think if you're, talking about something every single day, you've got to really love it. And both my parents had jobs that they loved. So my mum is a physio, my dad's a psychiatrist. And I grew up in a house where like they loved going to work. Like they never complained about work. Sunday was the same as Monday. So I guess that was like ingrained in me. Like my whole kind of thing was like, well, of course I'm going to have a job that I love. Like that's just what you do. And then you go out into the real world and you're like, oh, loads of people hate their jobs.
Yeah, that's so true. No, it's
So
so
like I feel really
inspiring.
lucky. Like I just had that. That's just what all I knew. All I knew was like, oh, you're going to enjoy going to work. So I always wanted to pick a job that I knew I would love to turn up for every day.
I love that. And how amazing and how fortunate for you that you got to see that from both parents. I mean,
Yeah.
that's really, really amazing. I think you talk about authenticity, which I love. So how do you stay authentic in a space that's constantly shifting, often very noisy? You look on social media or in the newspaper, and from one day to the next, it's do this, don't do this. It's all this conflicting nutrition and wellness advice. So how do you stay authentic?
I think that's such a good question. I think it's like you have to say kind of, I guess you call it authentic. To me, it's grounded. You have to say grounded in it because, like you said, there's new things coming out all the time. I always try and go back to like what sort of makes sense. And I think sometimes these new extremes that come out where it'll be like, I don't know, like this is the only food you should eat. And do you remember when like celery juice came in and it was like, if you don't drink celery juice, your
How
skin.
could I forget?
Yeah. And like, I think it's like, I think I just come back to like the realisticness of like one ingredient being the only thing. It just doesn't make sense. And I guess I just always kind of try and like reason through it. But yeah, I've never been someone that went, into extremes, or I've never like cut out massive food groups or, had like a specific kind of dietary thing. And that's probably not that good from a marketing perspective for me, because I think it's quite good when you're like, this is what you should do and be animal based or whatever. But I do think that it is important because actually I think that's what people actually really need to hear and what people really need in their lifestyle. And I think the more we cut out, the smaller our lives become. And I'm a really big believer in that. And I think that health shouldn't make your life smaller, it should make your life bigger. And I think for a lot of people, when it comes to these big trends and extremes, like they look really shiny, but then they make your life smaller because you're not eating out with your friends or you're not, enjoying certain things. And I think that's actually just not really the best way to live life. I think, you want to have moderation, you want to include lots of things. So I think having, yeah, like a sensible brain, obviously making sure looking that things are like have adequate research behind them as well, I think is really important. But yeah, I just think it's just like asking yourself, like, could someone do this every day? And not like the beautiful model who lives in like her apartment in Bali, like the average person who like does a full-time job and has like family that depend on them and things like that. I always think like, how could that person, incorporate this into their life?
Yes, I completely agree. It has to be realistic. Otherwise, it's just not going to be sustainable in the long term. And I like that you talk about not having to cut out all these major food groups. I have this really vivid memory of you being one of the first voices that I heard saying it's about what you can crowd in, not what you can cut out. And I always say that, and I say that to my clients all the time. I say it on social media. And I remember you being one of the first people I heard say that. I think it
Yeah,
was
it's
back in
in
the
my
day.
book.
Yeah, is it in Get the Glow?
And Get the Glow, and that came out 11 years ago. So
Blow
yeah,
that.
you know, and you know what? I'm exactly the same. I say it all, like it's my go-to phrase, crowd in rather than cut out, because I think it's also mindset. I think the minute if you, like we all know, the minute you go, oh, I'm not going to eat chocolate, your body is like, give me chocolate.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. So I think the more that in your mindset, you're like, I'm going to add in aubergine. I've never cooked with aubergine tonight and I'm going to try it out. The more you think in this abundant, positive mindset, I think the much more likely you are to continue with it. Because I think the more you get into scarcity, it's like a biological reaction in your body to like feast, and like you think that you're in a state of famine and you're like, oh my God, I've got to get it all. So yeah, I really believe mindset is like everything, because we I think we are, well, maybe not, we're slightly long gone of like the cabbage soup diets, or these really like, like crazy ones that were like maple syrup and like cayenne pepper and like hot water or something.
I remember the days.
Yeah, like they're just so, when you look at them and you're like, how did we go? I'm going to do that. That's a great idea.
Crazy, crazy.
But I think, I think you always want to do things that you want long term. So obviously we're talking about like summer. So many people do like really big things to get into their summer body, but then they're not sustainable long term. So yes, got it. It's lovely to feel confident and great in a bikini in summer, but actually, if it's so difficult that you are so exhausted on the beach and you're not enjoying yourself or whatever, then it's probably not that fun. So I think it's like, whenever you're making these changes, try and make them that you can do long term, that you could continue and you can have your summer glow all year round rather than just for that 1 week period. And I always remember I went on holiday to Thailand and I was swimming in the sea, and I love the sea. I'm just like always in the sea. And this beautiful like girl came down and she like set up her like camera and she like did her little poses, and then she packed everything up and then she left. And she would been on the beach for 10 minutes. And then I saw her like an hour and a half later, just in the nearby hotel in the aircon, just editing. And I thought, oh my God, so many people are going to be watching her thinking she's had the best day at the beach. And she did come to the beach. She was there for 10 minutes. She posed and then she sat in her hotel room sharing that with the world. And like, I think we all know like, oh, social media is not real. But so often we get in this headspace of like, well, we've got to get this photo or get this life. And another kind of linking back to your question you asked about what makes me authentic as well, is I don't share my personal life and I'm quite private, and that means that when I go on holiday, when I'm on my weekends, when I'm in my evenings, I'm just living my life. And I think that makes me grounded, that makes me who I am, rather than feeling like I'm performing all the time and have to get this particular picture or shot or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, I just think that's something that's really important to me. I know it's not important to everyone, but it is really important to me.
I love that. I think it is so important to strike that balance. And obviously, social media has changed hugely since you first started. I think it can be so overwhelming nowadays, like that girl that you saw on the beach and all her however many million followers watching her thinking, I have to be like her. I have to look like her. She lives a great life. She's super happy. She's had the best day on the beach. We know what really goes on, like behind the camera as well. So do you think that all the wellness content online is helping people, is inspiring people? Is it overwhelming them more? I mean, I think it can be really hard to navigate that pressure of what you share online and comparing yourself. There's so much going on Instagram nowadays. What's your take?
I think about it all the time. I sometimes think, God, it's such a wonderful place, like it connects people, it the things that I've learned and the career that I've had wouldn't have been possible without it. But I do think almost it's people have gone into the state of overwhelm that then the people don't do anything at all. And I think, also there's so many big things for like these much more extreme, like, I don't know, people are doing like peptide injections and things like this. And I'm sure, like, don't get me wrong, I haven't done them, but I'm sure they're amazing. But like for the average person, like that's so overwhelming to think that they've got to like do that alongside all the a billion things. So I actually do think at the moment where we are in this place of wellness would definitely feel really overwhelming. It feels overwhelming to me, and I am an educated person, so I must feel so overwhelming for people. So I do sometimes worry that it is a bit too much. So for anyone listening, I think the best thing to do is just to like say you hear one advice from today or something, just take one thing and implement it into your life rather than trying to take all of it. And I recently actually created on my platform, the Glow Space, it's called like the foundations because of this, because I was literally like, oh my God, like how many new gadgets do we need to buy? You know, it's like suddenly you have to monitor this and track this. And I think they're really interesting, but like that's a lot. It's almost like a full-time job for people. And also I also feel like it's people's personalities now. And it's like I think we've got to have more to our personality than like, I don't know, the matcha that we drink. We need to have more. So I think that, yeah, I think that really what moves the needle is the core kind of things. And they're really boring, but it's like hydration, quality sleep, you know, eating, sitting down mindfully, like chewing your food, having enough protein in your meal, you know, doing a bit of mindfulness to manage your stress. Like, you know, probably everyone is listening going, yeah, I've heard that before. But it's like, how many people actually do that? Or how many people are like on their phones till like midnight? Or like getting through the day and not drinking a glass of water. So yeah, I think we have to master the basics before we move on to the next things. And I think probably everyone could do with a bit of time offline. It's hard because it's like a natural reflex that we just like switch to. But I think, yeah, I think even with like self-help books, I don't know if you're into self-help books. I used to read them like all the time, like back to back. And then
Yeah.
I literally didn't implement a thing because it was just so much. It was like, you got to do this, you got to do this, or this. And then I was like, do you know what? Like, I'm not sure. And I started reading fiction. And then what I'm sort of saying to myself is I'll read like two a year, but I'll actually do what they say. So if they say to, you know, do X, Y, Z, I'll do X, Y, Z for 6 months rather than constantly, because I almost feel like it perpetuated this thought pattern that like I was broken, you know, that thing of like, you know, I'm not good enough, I'm broken, you know, I need to be better.
Mm-hmm.
It's constantly just reminding you all the ways that you suck and all the things you need to do. So I was like, this is not a helpful thought pattern. And I'm really into like watching my thoughts and, you know, you know, thinking, oh, why am I saying that to myself? Or why am I thinking that? Because I think, you know, we don't go to bed with like our beautiful clothes or our beautiful home. Like we go to bed with our thoughts. So I think they're like almost the most important things to watch. And I think sometimes too much health and too much self-development can tip you into almost spiraling rather than doing what it's meant to do, right? Which is meant to help people and have this positive impact on people.
Yeah, definitely. In the same way that following 25 Victoria's Secrets model is not going to make you look like a Victoria's Secrets model, consuming a new self-help book every week isn't going to change, you know, the way you are as a person unless you're taking action, unless you're implementing. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Unless you're making, yeah, like one small step forward. Because yeah, I think you can read as much as you want, but like you've got to actually do it, right? You can be really well educated, but that's not going to put the, I don't know, Brussels sprouts on your plate. So that's got to be you who kind of makes that happen.
Definitely. I always say to my clients, I can give you all the tools in the toolbox, but if you are not implementing it, what can I do? So I would love to move on to talk to you a bit more about gut health and skin and how we can glow from within. So we hear a lot about glowing skin, but how much of that really starts in the gut? Is there a big connection here?
Yeah. So I think we talk a lot about how our immune system lies in our guts, but also, you know, this is where we absorb our nutrition. So I think we want to be looking after that. And I think digestion starts in the mouth, so we really need to chew our food. If we don't chew our food properly, that can cause a lot of bloating. It also means that we're not going to absorb our nutrients as well. So taking your time to like mindfully chew your food is one of the best tips I think I have for bloating and for like skin glowing, because you're going to absorb things better. And try and like sit down when you eat as well, because when we're like walking around running, even if we're like on our phone or watching TV, we're in a state of like stress, whereas we want to be in a state of like relaxation, rest and digest, as people call it. And that's like the place we want to be when we are eating. And then in terms of what we're eating for gut health, I think there's no like one specific food. I think it is about diversity. So, you know, a lot of people talk about 30 types of plants. I think this is a really nice way of looking at it. And when we look at plants, we're not just talking about veg and fruit, we're talking about nuts and seeds, grains, legumes. So just any kind of plant food, just getting different things on our plate. Because so often we get in like a veg rut, don't we? We sort of just eat sweet potato and tomato or something every night.
Yeah.
Swap it out into a different veg can make such a difference, because the more diversity we have, the more diversity in our gut we can have, the more our microbiome kind of grows, which is what we want. So diversity is really important. Chewing is really important. And then I do think things for glowing skin. I've always been a big fan of like omega-3 rich foods.
Mm-hmm.
Sardines seem to be like the new popular thing, which is amazing because they are a really good omega-3 rich fish.
Who would have thought they would be a trend? I mean, I love sardines, but now that it's all over Instagram.
I know. I feel like I've always talked about them. People are like, yuck. But yeah, and they're quite inexpensive, and they're small as well, which is good because the larger the fish is, the more mercury are in. So we're trying to eat as more smaller fish than the bigger fish. And salmon, you know, is also a good one, but probably wild is the best option. However, wild salmon, let's be honest, doesn't taste as good as farmed salmon.
And that's a lot more expensive.
And it's so much more expensive. So yeah, I feel like mackerel as well is another really good one. I often buy like those smoked mackerel fillets. They're just really good for quick lunch, you know, whack it on rye bread, you know, a bit of dill, yogurt, some rocket or something like that, and you've got like a quick healthy lunch. And then you can also, if you don't want to eat fish, omega-3 rich foods you can get from like flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts as well. And again, you can just add those in. You know, we're talking about that crowding and rather cutting out. So if you have your morning oats, you could just add in that teaspoon of chia or flax into that, and suddenly you've got this omega-3, but you've also got your fiber, and that's going to be amazing for your digestive health. It's going to keep you regular. It's going to feed your microbiome. So many people are lacking in fiber, and I think, you know, most people are getting under sort of 15 grams a day, and we're trying to aim for 30. And I think literally if you add in some chia seeds and flax seeds in the morning, and if you add in some chickpeas and lentils at your lunch, you're pretty much hitting your kind of daily target with a bit of fruit and veg mixed in there too.
Yeah, definitely. Fiber is so important and such an underrated nutrient.
Definitely, it should be in the macros of with the protein, fats and carbohydrates. But yeah, and then obviously for glowing skin, hydration. Another big trend at the moment is electrolytes, and probably you don't necessarily need them. They're definitely good to have, especially if you do high intensity exercise. So anything where you're sweating a lot. Have you done a hot mat Pilates?
Yes, I have infrared Pilates.
Yes, I suppose. Oh my God, it's so good. But you get really sweaty. Like
so sweaty. Oh my gosh.
I was so not, you know, you kind of walk in and you're like, it's warm. And then like at the end of the class, you're like, oh my God, I'm actually like dripping. So yeah, if you're hitting the hot mat Pilates or you're doing saunas, you're running a lot, you're doing kind of any HIIT classes, then yes, it's really good to have electrolytes to kind of replenish. But even just adding an inch of sea salt into your water, you know, there's lots of foods that are natural in electrolytes, like, you know, bananas. So, you know, you can get them elsewhere. So I don't think you have to like have them, and you don't have to have them every day, but they are nice on the days that you're sweating a lot more. But yeah, just keeping up your hydration, through water. Herbal teas as well are really good. And then, if you want to kind of maybe take like supplements, a lot of people like taking collagen. I actually do quite like taking collagen for skin. I think the marine collagen specifically is the best one for skin health. I think the bovine collagen is better for like your joints and if you've got kind of any issues with your joints, that's a better option.
What brands do you like for collagen?
Ooh, I like loads. I kind of mix it up. So I really like Vitaglow. Do you know them? They're like
I haven't tried this.
I just like the ones that you don't taste.
Yeah.
But yeah, I sort of like to mix it up. I feel like I'm like always interested in trying. The most recent one that I've tried that's really delicious is Zuki. They do like the vitamin C
Yeah, I've seen theirs.
in the sachet as well. So that's quite nice if you like it in liquid form. And there's a lot of evidence to say liquid form is more absorbent, especially with vitamin C. So I've been trying that out as well, and I quite like that sachet. It's just kind of easy.
Yeah, it looks
The
convenient.
planet. Convenient.
Definitely. There's a lot of good brands. I really like Bare Biology, and I also love Ancient and Brave. They're two brands that I always come back to.
Yes, I'm totally with you. I think they're fantastic as well.
Amazing. We know we should be consuming fermented foods for our gut health, but have you tried kimchi or sauerkraut? This episode is sponsored by The Cultured Collective, whose kimchi and sauerkraut are naturally fermented, unpasteurized, and tested for live cultures, as well as being a source of fiber. They've won awards for their flavor, so I'm not the only one who thinks they taste amazing. It's really easy to add a scoop of these real live foods to all kinds of meals. I love adding kimchi to the side of my eggs and topping avocado toast with sauerkraut. They're offering listeners of the Gut 360 podcast a huge 50% off their kimchi and sauerkraut, so head to the show notes to find out more. This episode is sponsored by IM8. As a nutritionist, I'm always talking about the importance of a 360-degree approach to health, supporting your gut, energy, immune system, and sleep consistently, not just when something feels off. That's why I've been using IM8 Daily Essentials as part of my morning routine. It's a comprehensive formula with 92 nutrient-rich ingredients, including probiotics, prebiotics, and postbiotics to support the gut, alongside key vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants to help fill in the gaps of modern living. It's not a replacement for a balanced diet, but it's a really convenient way to help support your foundations daily, especially when life feels busy. If you're looking for something simple to support your mind, body, and gut, check out IM8 Daily Essentials. Use the code GUT360 for a special discount and free welcome kit on your first order. And are there any particular nutrients that you think women are often missing if they are feeling flat or tired or just not quite themselves?
Yeah, definitely. I think vitamin D would definitely be one of them.
Yeah.
So obviously we're in summer now and we're getting sunshine, but we definitely, living in the UK, as many of us listening, have had a lot of time not having a lot of sunlight on our skin. And even if it's summer, we don't often get outside enough to get it. So I think definitely supplementing with vitamin D, especially in the winter months, is important. And then, make the most of being in summer and get outside and get that sunshine on your skin. I think that definitely is really linked to mood. A lot of times, I just think getting in nature as well can really make you feel good. Like there's so much evidence to show that like forest bathing is like one of the best cures for depression and, anxiety. So I'm always trying to just like get a little zap of like nature, even though I live in London, in my life. And then I think other things for kind of making you feel good, lots of B vitamins, but I actually quite like getting them from whole food sources. So eating, good quality grass-fed meat. I've always been a big fan of meat. I know it's now come back and been trendy to eat meat. But like, I think in my like food philosophy, in my first book, one of the like titles is like, get meaty. Because I actually really think, I don't think you need to eat loads of meat, but I do think good quality grass-fed meat. Like when you look at the stats of the nutrients in meat and the absorbability, like it is kind of unbelievable. So I think, adding that into your diet is really good, especially for your iron. That can make you feel quite tired and low. And a lot of women are low in iron as well.
Yeah.
Sure, you're adding in some vitamin C for absorption. So you don't need to have orange juice with your steak, but you could have like red pepper or spinach or something like that, or lemon or something like that, just for absorption. But
I
yeah,
definitely think with red meat, a little goes a long way because it's so nutrient dense. So you don't need to be eating it every day. Like personally, I only eat red meat maybe once a week. Usually I just have it on Friday nights at a family dinner. And I feel like that is such a good top up for my nutrient stores for the whole week. Whatever works for you, but I think quality over quantity and choosing high quality meat is so much better than having a cheaper but poorer quality meat several times a week.
absolutely, yeah. And like you said, your body's clever. It stores these things. It's not like it's like you eat it and you're gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely eat a lot more meat than you do. But I feel really good on it and it kind of works for me.
That's good. That's important.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing is like being your own detective, figure out what works for you. Like I remember I went vegan for a period of time and it just didn't work for me. And I respect people who do it. I think it's so, it definitely is like I really understand it from, the health perspective, but also from the environmental perspective. But it just didn't work for me. And I think we're all by individual. And even if there's a study saying you have, like what's the latest thing that you've got to eat breakfast within 30 minutes of waking up. That's actually been around a long time, but it's kind of full circled again.
Yeah.
Or like you've got to eat before you train in the morning. Like I actually feel better exercising before I eat. It's just how I feel. And I know that for women's hormones, it's meant to be better. But I don't do crazy like marathons. I'm doing like 20 minutes of Pilates on my mat, So it's not like I need to like have this like extreme, you know, fueling before, but it just works with my lifestyle and with what I do. And I think we have to kind of respect that. Yes, there might be data saying X, Y, Z, but if your body feels better in this kind of state and like you're functioning, you're sleeping well, you're living life well, then it works for you.
Yeah, 100%. We're all so individual. We have to do what makes us feel our best. And I think the same can be said with these kind of summer health resets that we see coming around every year. There's this pressure to suddenly reset before summer. So where do you think people can go wrong? Obviously, when we really overly restrict what we're eating, that can affect our digestion, our hormones, our energy. So what tips would you say? What should people be mindful of at this time of year?
I think, yeah, not going too hard. Like, when you haven't exercised for a while and you're like, going to do it 7 days a week.
Yeah.
I think like, doing 3 days a week is incredible. Like that's a really good amount of exercise. I think, doing a mixture of some sort of weight training, resistance training, and then, you can match that with Pilates or you can match that with running, depending on what style of exercise you like to do. But I do think strength training is really important. It's really good for, growing your muscles, but it's also, we really need to do that, especially as women at this moment in time, because it's so much harder to increase muscle mass as you get older. So the more we can lay down those foundations, yes, we're going to look gorgeous on the beach this summer, but we're also going to thank ourselves, when we're in our like 50s, 60s and beyond, because we're going to have had that muscle mass already there. Yeah, I think people go wrong by going, eating too little, exercising too much. I think often what people do is they'll eat a really small breakfast to make them feel good, but then because they're hungry, they'll go and like smash like, I don't know, like a massive snack of something, like maybe, and it could even be healthy, it could be like loads and loads of nuts and dried fruit and something, but suddenly you're almost eating like more than if you just had like a proper good meal. So I would always focus on having like 3 proper meals. And yes, if you really need to snack, but like try and focus on getting your nutrition through the meals. They'll be much more nutrient dense, they'll fill you up more. And I think when you're snacking, you're often unconscious of how much you're having. You're sort of like having a bit of this, bit of that, and that can add up. So I think almost the more you focus and you're more mindful with your meals, it without you even trying hard, you'll probably eat less than sort of trying to be like, oh, I'll just have a soup for lunch, and then you're hungry like 2 hours later and then you're eating again. And again, this is better for your digestion because you're having these respites between, because if we're constantly grazing throughout the day, our stomach never really empties and it sort of never gets this kind of moment to recalibrate, rest. So I think that's definitely important.
Yeah, for sure. I think balanced meals with all those macros, the protein, healthy fats, some complex carbohydrates, adding in fiber as the fourth macro, like we were saying earlier, that's like such a foundation. And if you're doing that, you're probably not going to want or need to graze throughout the day. You know, maybe if you have a balanced lunch and you know that you've got a really late dinner that night, then you might want to consider having a tactical, balanced afternoon snack.
Yeah,
But otherwise, you may find that you don't need it. Not only are you more physically satiated, but also more kind of mentally and emotionally satisfied because you're not
right.
depriving yourself.
And also because you're having a variety of flavors. Like I
Yeah.
think, having like a bit of sweet, sour, salty on your plate in your meal, it's amazing how that makes you feel satisfied rather than when you eat, say, a snack that's just one. It might just be sweet or it might just be salty, like crisps or something. It doesn't give you that same satisfaction. And coming back to gut health, something that I didn't talk about, which feels very obvious, is we didn't talk about probiotic rich foods. So adding in something like, a sauerkraut, a kimchi, some sort of fermented food. Again, that's very good at making your taste buds feel very satisfied. So, you don't need to add a lot of it, but just like a tablespoon in is really good for taste satisfaction, but also it's got loads of probiotic rich cultures in it. And that's really good for feeding your microbiome and helping with your gut health.
I completely agree. I'm obsessed with kimchi and sauerkraut. I love the Cultured Collective. Have you tried them?
Yes, they're so good.
They're the sponsor of this episode. So this has
Amazing.
come up really
That works
nicely.
well.
This works perfectly. But no, I genuinely love them. Like on my avocado toast and eggs for a quick work from home lunch, a bit of sauerkraut on top, or kimchi for a punch, for a kick. Amazing. Really, really good tip. I would love to ask you a little bit about how having children kind of changes the rhythm and your energy and your priorities. I know a few months ago you've had your second. So how has motherhood changed your relationship with health?
Yeah, it definitely has. I think it's just made me I guess have less time for myself, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I almost think in some ways it's quite nice because you're less centered around yourself,
Mhm.
which is probably was a good thing for myself. But yeah, I guess it's just having less time, and I think it means, maybe I'm exercising from home rather than going to a really amazing Pilates studio. Maybe we're having a bit less time to kind of make my meals or do my meditations or all the, beautiful things that I would love to kind of give back to myself. But also, I think it's given me a different perspective because my mornings start with like cuddles in bed and like, maybe like dancing to like Disney music or something. And that to me is still wellness. Like,
That is wellness. How do you approach feeding your family without that pressure or that perfection? I feel like a lot of new mums, but also mums who are not such new mums, are always going to feel some level of pressure to feed their kids perfectly. So how do you go about that?
I think you have to not take it personally. There's so many times that I've like made a massive, like, I don't know, lasagna or something that takes a long time and then it's like literally rejected and thrown on the floor. You have to not take it personally. I think you have to persevere with foods. Like they might not like carrots for the first year of their life and the second they might. So just keep, putting it on their plate. I think also like, I always think like I know I was really rubbish eater when I was younger. I just ate pasta. I think I pretty much ate pasta like most nights and plain pasta. I didn't even want a sauce on it. And I've turned out fine and I eat diverse foods and I'm healthy and I look after myself. So I think we don't need to stress too much. Of course, we want to like give our children the best food that we can. So try and like always, I think, whether you've got children or not, stock your cupboards with good food because if you've got it there, you are going to eat that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're constantly filling your cupboards with like crisps and chocolate, like you are just going to eat that because it's there. So I think the more stock your cupboards and fridge with foods that you want your children and your family to eat, that's what they're going to eat because people just eat what's in front of them and what they know as well. We kind of have like sort of like 20 recipes that like everyone loves, everyone's going to eat, and like rotate between them in the evenings. And I think that's good. Like as you build with your family, like find those meals that you're like, I know everyone loves this, it's balanced, it's healthy, and it works. And then you can just kind of go through them rather than feeling like you've got to like think of a brand new recipe to make all the time. Obviously hidden vegetables are really good. So like grating vegetables into sauces, all the classic kids dishes like, bolognese, they're so easy to get so much goodness into them. And, even like fritters and things like that, kids love that. And just grating
Mm.
courgette. Like I made cauliflower fritters the other day, which was so good, but just like grating things in there. But I also think modeling, like if they see you eating well, they're much more likely to. Like, kids don't do what you say, they do as you do. They model you in behavior, and sometimes that's quite frightening because you see like a bad trait of yours being acted out by your child. But it's a good thing, like it means that you can have an impact in a different way. But I think some kids are more fussy than others, and you have to just work around that. But I think if you're just constantly trying to add in the good stuff along the way, and even if that means that it's only a small part of their plate, that's better than nothing.
Yeah, I love that. So many amazing tips here, really actionable, practical tips. This is great. Madeline, if you had to create a realistic summer glow up checklist, what would actually be on it?
Okay, so it would be drink 2 to 3 liters of water every day,
Hmm.
strength train 2 to 3 times a week, dry body brush, which is
Oh,
really
love
good for
that.
like lymphatic flow, which is really good if you get like puffy, really good for cellulite. Also, just like exfoliate the body, make it feel kind of good and fresh. Balance your plate with a quarter protein, a quarter carbohydrates, some healthy fats like thumb size, and then the rest of the half vegetables, ideally different colors, and try and do that for at least 2 of your meals a day. I would try and get some morning sunlight on your skin in the morning and try and go for a nature walk once a week with your
Mm.
friends. Make it social, you know, don't just do your wellness journey by yourself. Get involved with other people so that you're kind of feeling connected. Um,
I love that. I think bringing your friends into it, it keeps you more accountable as well. If you say, I'm gonna book a Pilates with a friend this weekend, then you're gonna show up. You're not gonna cancel on your friend.
and then I think mindset. I think just being kind to yourself. Like when you're on holiday or, in your summer dress or whatever, people aren't genuinely staring at your knees or your elbows or all the whatever the thing that you're feeling self-conscious about. Most people are thinking about themselves. So just remember that, and don't be hard on yourself. Be kind to yourself because, I really think that the more that we're kind to ourselves, the more likely we are to make better choices, to enjoy our lives. And I really think that, the only day that you can start is now. If you're like, oh, but I'm always mean to myself, it's like, well, just start today. Start looking in the mirror and being kinder to yourself, saying nice things to yourself. Because your reality is kind of the conversation that you have in your head. So the kinder you are to yourself, the better.
I love that. Let's wrap up on that note and move into our quick fire round. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Amazing. What is something that seems healthy but often backfires for your health?
Fasting.
Oh, yeah, a few people have said that. What's one habit you see clients struggle with the most?
Mindful eating.
Mm, same. What is one healthy habit people can start implementing today?
Adding protein to their breakfast.
Love it. Simple. What's your favorite gut friendly food?
Kimchi.
What's your go to breakfast on busy days?
Yogurt bowl with like Greek yogurt, stewed berries, chia seeds, and some nut butter.
Yum. Sounds amazing. What is one nutrition myth or wellness trend that you wish would disappear?
Juice cleansers.
Oh, yeah. What's one healthy habit you're still working on?
Drinking enough water.
Hmm. And we'll finish with a few fun ones. Coffee or
Yep.
matcha?
Matcha.
Favorite coffee shop?
My house.
Love that. Overnight oats or eggs on toast?
Eggs on toast.
And if you could only do one type of exercise for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Pilates.
And lastly, what is one word that you associate with a healthy gut?
Glow.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Madeleine, for being a guest on the Gut 360 podcast. Can you tell us a bit more about your platform, The Glow Space, and where people can learn more about what you do?
Yes. So I have my platform, The Glow Space, and it's a digital platform. And you have meditations, meal plans, and movement. And it's about accessible, affordable wellness. So, it's $49.99 a month. So it's definitely less than your average Pilates class. And it's just there to kind of make you feel motivated. It's for anyone that feels like they can't, make the class or hire a nutritionist, but they want that help. The recipes are all delicious. They're always balanced. And I've got really nice short meditations just to kind of get you out of that stress state and make you feel good.
Amazing. Thanks again, Madeleine, for your time. And thank you guys for listening to today's episode of the Gut 360 podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you hit follow for weekly episodes every Monday morning. And if you learned something new today, send this podcast to your friend, sister, mum, anyone who you think it may benefit. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll be back in your ears next Monday.